The phone call came on a quiet Tuesday evening. My parents, their voices brimming with excitement, announced that Jackson, my older brother, had proposed to his girlfriend Amanda. I felt genuine happiness wash over me, anticipating a beautiful family reunion. But somewhere beneath that joy lurked an uneasy feeling. Jackson had always been the golden child, and now with his perfect fiancée, I wondered where that left me, and the inheritance Grandma had specifically left for my art studio dreams. Let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If this story about family pressure and standing up for yourself resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe to join me through this roller coaster of emotions that tested my entire family. I grew up in a comfortable middle-class neighborhood in Seattle, where everything seemed normal on the surface. Our family consisted of my father, Robert, a dedicated high school principal, my mother, Patricia, a pediatric nurse, my older brother, Jackson, and myself, Cleveland. From the outside, we looked like the quintessential American family, but inside those walls, the dynamics were far more complex. Jackson, 5 years, my senior, embodied perfection from day one. With his natural athletic ability, he excelled at football and baseball, earning scholarships and trophies that decorated our living room. His academic achievements were equally impressive, graduating top of his class and earning a full ride to an Ivy League business school. His charismatic personality drew people to him effortlessly, making him popular with both teachers and peers. Jackson was the standard against which I was constantly measured, the golden boy whose shadow I could never escape. I, on the other hand, found my calling in art and music. Where Jackson thrived in competition and structure, I flourished in creativity and expression. My sketchbooks filled with drawings and my fingers calloused from guitar strings. My parents never explicitly compared us, but their pride in Jackson was unmistakable, while their reaction to my interests felt like polite acknowledgement at best. Cleveland has his artsy thing, my mother would say to her friends, the dismissive undertone barely concealed. Jackson just made partner at his firm, she would quickly add, steering the conversation back to her favorite subject. My father would attend every single one of Jackson's games, but would find excuses to miss my art exhibitions. Those gallery openings are just so crowded, he would explain, as if the bleachers at football games were spacious and comfortable. Throughout my childhood and teenage years, I learned to accept my position as the afterthought, the second son, who would never quite measure up. I found solace in my relationship with my grandmother, my mother's mother, who lived just a few blocks away from us. Grandma Eleanor was different from my parents. She saw something in me that they missed. Your art speaks to people. Cleveland, she would tell me, her eyes twinkling as she examined my latest painting. You have a gift for capturing emotions that most people keep buried. Grandma Eleanor was an artist herself in her younger days, though life circumstances had forced her to abandon that path. Perhaps that is why she understood my passion so deeply. When I would visit her house, she would clear her dining table and sit with me for hours as I sketched or painted. She attended every exhibition, every small showcase, and beamed with pride as if I had won the Super Bowl. Your brother runs after what everyone else values, she once told me. But you, Cleveland, you create value where others see nothing. That takes a different kind of courage. 6 months ago, Grandma Eleanor passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 87. The loss devastated me. She was not just my grandmother, but my champion, my confidant, and the one person who truly saw me. At the reading of her will, I was surprised to learn that she had left me $90,000 with specific instructions that it be used to help establish my own art studio. My parents seemed taken aback by this decision, while Jackson appeared indifferent. After all, he was doing exceptionally well financially and hardly needed the inheritance. She always did favor your artistic tendencies, my mother commented, her tone suggesting that my grandmother had somehow made an error in judgment. The inheritance remained untouched in my account, as I carefully planned how to make the most of this incredible gift. I researched locations, equipment, and business plans determined to honor my grandmother's belief in me by creating something meaningful. Meanwhile, my life continued on its modest but satisfying track. After graduating with a degree in fine arts, I had secured a position as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm. The pay was decent, but not extravagant. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment with just enough space for a small work area where I continued to create art in my free time. I had been saving diligently even before the inheritance, but Grandma Eleanor's gift had suddenly made my dream tangible rather than distant. Jackson, by contrast, had climbed the corporate ladder with impressive speed. Now 32, he worked as an investment banker at a prestigious firm, while I, at 27, was still finding my footing. His fiancée, Amanda, was cut from the same ambitious cloth. She worked in corporate law, and together they made a power couple that embodied success as defined by society. They lived in a luxury high-rise apartment, drove matching luxury cars, and took lavish vacations that filled their social media feeds. Their lifestyle choices reflected their priorities, status, appearance, and accumulation of the finer things in life. Despite our differences, I had always maintained a cordial relationship with Jackson. We were never particularly close, but neither were we openly antagonistic. Family gatherings were polite affairs where we would exchange pleasantries about our respective lives before gravitating toward those with whom we had more in common. I had met Amanda several times and found her pleasant enough, if somewhat focused on material concerns. Never could I have anticipated how our next family gathering would unfold, or how it would force me to stand up for myself in ways I never had before. 3 weeks after that initial phone call, I made the 2-hour drive to my parents' home for what was supposed to be a celebratory dinner. The familiar streets of my childhood neighborhood brought back a flood of memories as I pulled into the driveway. My mother greeted me with a warm hug at the door, and my father clapped me on the shoulder with his usual restrained affection. "Jackson and Amanda are already here," my mother informed me, her voice tinged with excitement. "They have so many wonderful ideas for the wedding." The dining room was decorated with congratulatory banners, and a small engaged cake sat proudly at the center of the table. Jackson and Amanda sat close together, both looking impeccably dressed and radiating happiness. I genuinely felt happy for them as I offered my congratulations and took my seat at the table. "So good to see you, little brother Jackson," said, raising his glass in my direction. "Glad you could make it." "I would not miss it," I replied sincerely. "Congratulations to both of you." The initial conversation flowed easily as we enjoyed my mother's cooking. Amanda enthusiastically shared their proposal story, a meticulously planned affair involving a private helicopter tour and a sunset landing on a beach where Jackson had arranged a picnic and photographers to capture the moment. It sounded expensive, elaborate, and perfectly aligned with their lifestyle. As dinner progressed, the conversation naturally turned to wedding plans. What started as casual discussion quickly evolved into what sounded like preparations for a royal event. "We have found the most amazing venue," Amanda gushed, showing pictures on her phone of an exclusive historical estate outside the city. "It only does a few weddings each year, so we had to book it immediately." "It is absolutely perfect," my mother agreed, scrolling through the photos with admiration. "The place is incredible," Jackson added. "Private gardens, ballroom accommodation for the wedding party, the works." I nodded appreciatively, though I was already beginning to sense the extravagance of their plans. My suspicions were confirmed when Amanda casually mentioned the cost. "The venue alone is $45,000 for the weekend," she said, as if discussing the price of a dinner out. "But it includes so much, and the exclusivity is worth every penny." My father coughed slightly at the figure, but quickly composed himself. "Well, this is a once-in-a-lifetime event," he said supportively. The conversation continued with details about designer dresses, exotic flower arrangements, Michelin-starred catering, and a band that had apparently performed for celebrities. With each new element, the price tag seemed to grow exponentially. All told, we are looking at around 120,000, Jackson stated matter-of-factly, which is actually quite reasonable for what we are getting. I nearly choked on my drink. That amount was more than my annual salary, and they were speaking about it as if discussing a monthly grocery budget. I noticed my parents exchange a quick glance, but say nothing. That sounds elaborate, I managed to say neutrally. There was a brief pause before Amanda turned to me with a carefully crafted smile. Actually, Cleveland, that is something we wanted to talk to you about. I felt a sudden shift in the atmosphere, a tension that had not been there moments before. Jackson cleared his throat and leaned forward slightly. We know Grandma Eleanor left you a substantial amount, he began, his tone measured and reasonable. And we were thinking, since you have not used it yet, perhaps you might consider contributing it to the wedding fund. The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. I blinked, certain I had misheard or misunderstood. I am sorry, what I asked, looking between Jackson and Amanda with confusion. Your inheritance, Amanda clarified, maintaining her pleasant tone. 90,000 would make such a difference to our special day. We could upgrade several elements that we have had to compromise on. My confusion quickly turned to disbelief. You want me to give you my inheritance? The money Grandma specifically left for my art studio. Think of it as an investment in family happiness, Jackson said smoothly. Let us be honest, Cleveland. That art studio is just a pipe dream. Is it really the best use of that money? I felt as if I had been physically struck. The dismissal of my dreams, the entitlement in their request, the casual way they had planned to appropriate something so personal left me momentarily speechless. It is not just about the money, I finally said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Grandma left it to me for a specific purpose. She wanted to support my art. Amanda's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. I understand it has sentimental value, but realistically, what are the chances your studio will ever be profitable? This way, the money benefits the whole family. I looked to my parents, expecting them to intervene, to point out the inappropriateness of the request. To my shock, they remained silent, avoiding my gaze. The betrayal cut deep, as I realized they were not going to speak up for me. I have been planning this studio for years, I explained, feeling increasingly defensive. The inheritance makes it possible much sooner than I expected, but it is not a whim or a hobby. This is my career, my passion. Passion does not pay bills, Jackson countered. Amanda and I have worked hard to build our careers. This wedding is a networking opportunity as much as a celebration. Many important clients and colleagues will be there. The connections made could benefit all of us. The implication was clear. Their careers, their aspirations, their priorities were legitimate. Mine were not. I am sorry, I said firmly, but I cannot give you my inheritance. It means too much to me, and I intend to use it exactly as Grandma wished. The pleasant facade cracked. Amanda's smile disappeared entirely, and Jackson's expression hardened. That is incredibly selfish. Cleveland, he said, his voice taking on an edge, I recognized from childhood arguments. Families should support each other. This is not about support, I replied, feeling my own anger rising. This is about respecting Grandma's wishes and my dreams. The dinner concluded awkwardly, with forced pleasantries barely concealing the new tension. As I drove home that night, I felt a mixture of guilt and indignation. Had I been selfish? Was I wrong to protect what was rightfully mine? The doubt crept in, as it always had, when I stood against my golden boy brother. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of the pressure that would follow, escalating in ways I could never have anticipated. The week following that uncomfortable dinner was filled with an increasing barrage of communication. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from Jackson and Amanda, each one more insistent than the last. Just think about what this means to us, read one text from Jackson. This is the most important day of our lives. Amanda took a different approach. Your contribution would mean so much to us. We would acknowledge your generosity in the wedding program and speeches, as if my inheritance was a transaction for public recognition rather than a deeply personal gift from my grandmother. Then came the calls from my parents. The first one from my mother started gently. "Cleveland, honey, I know you are attached to the idea of that studio," she began, her voice soft and persuasive. "But sometimes we need to make sacrifices for family. Jackson has always been there for you." I bit back the retort that wanted to escape. When exactly had Jackson been there for me? When he missed my college graduation because of a business trip, when he forgot my birthday, 3 years running, the selective memory of my family regarding Jackson's involvement in my life was staggering. "Mom, this is not about Jackson," I explained patiently. "This is about respecting Grandma's wishes. She left that money specifically for my studio." "Your grandmother would want you to support your brother," she countered, a hint of steel entering her voice. "Family comes first. She would understand that." The invocation of my grandmother's supposed wishes felt like a violation. My mother had never understood the bond between Grandma Eleanor and me, and now she was using her memory as leverage. My father's call came the next day, more direct and less emotionally manipulative. "Son, your mother and I have always supported both you and your brother equally," he stated, an assertion so divorced from reality that I almost laughed. "Now we are asking you to consider what is best for the family as a whole. Dad, this is my inheritance. Grandma wanted me to have it for my art." "Your art can wait," he replied dismissively. "This is a crucial moment for your brother. His future in-laws are very influential people. This wedding needs to make the right impression." The pressure intensified when I received an email from Jackson with a detailed breakdown of wedding costs and a highlighted section showing exactly how my inheritance would be allocated. The presumption was breathtaking, as if my agreement was a foregone conclusion, and we were merely sorting out the details. 5 days after the initial dinner, I received a group text from my mother family meeting this Saturday at 2 p.m. "We need to resolve this situation as a family." The tone left no room for refusal, and despite my growing resentment, I found myself driving back to my parents' house that weekend, a sense of dread building with every mile. When I arrived, everyone was already seated in the living room. The atmosphere was tense, with Jackson and Amanda on one sofa, my parents in their usual chairs, and a conspicuously empty seat clearly meant for me. It felt less like a family discussion and more like an intervention. "Cleveland," my father began, once I was seated, "we have asked you here because this situation needs to be addressed. Jackson and Amanda's wedding is in 4 months, and final payments for many elements are coming due. I do not see what that has to do with me," I replied, striving to keep my tone neutral despite the obvious ambush. Amanda leaned forward, her professional negotiation skills on full display. "Cleveland, I understand you feel attached to your inheritance and the idea of your studio, but this wedding is not just any event. It is a statement about our future, about the joining of our families. Your grandmother would have wanted you to be generous," my mother added, once again invoking Grandma Eleanor's memory in a way that made my blood boil. "You have no idea what Grandma would have wanted." I snapped, my composure slipping. "She specifically left that money for my studio because she believed in my art when none of you did." "Do not be dramatic," Jackson scoffed. "No one is saying your little hobby is not important. We are just saying the timing is inconvenient. You can save up for your studio again later." The dismissal of my passion as a little hobby stung deeply. It embodied the way my family had always minimized my dreams and talents. "This is not about timing," I said firmly. "This is about respect. Respect for Grandma's wishes, and respect for my life choices." Amanda's pleasant facade cracked completely. "This is so selfish," she exclaimed. "Do you have any idea the pressure we are under? My parents have invited their entire social circle. My father's business partners will be there. We cannot cut corners now. That sounds like a problem of your own making, I replied, finding strength in my growing indignation. If you cannot afford the wedding you planned, perhaps you should scale it back. The suggestion was met with looks of horror, as if I had proposed something truly obscene. Scale back, Amanda repeated incredulously. We have already sent save the dates. People have expectations, and those expectations are more important than my inheritance, than Grandma's wishes for me. Jackson intervened, his tone now openly hostile. The fact is, Cleveland, we have already put down non-refundable deposits based on the budget we anticipated. We specifically chose the band you mentioned liking last Christmas as a gesture to include your taste. The manipulation was so transparent, it was almost laughable. One conversation about a band I had mentioned in passing was now being presented as if the entire wedding had been planned with my preferences in mind. Then came the bombshell. Amanda, clearly frustrated by my continued resistance, blurted out, "We have already allocated your contribution in our budget. The venue payment is due next week. We cannot lose this venue, Cleveland. Do you understand what you are doing to us?" I stared at her in disbelief. You budgeted my money without even asking me. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room, broken only when my mother spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Cleveland, we told them you would help. We assured Jackson that you would want to be part of making his special day perfect." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. My own parents had promised my inheritance without my knowledge or consent. They had spoken for me, assumed control over my property, and now expected me to simply comply with their decision. "How could you do that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because we knew you would make the right choice," my father replied. "Because we knew that deep down you understand that family comes first. Your grandmother would have wanted this," my mother added, twisting the knife deeper. "She always said family was everything." Something inside me snapped at the continued invocation of my grandmother's memory to manipulate me. "Do not tell me what Grandma would have wanted," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain calm. "She was the only one who ever supported my art. The only one who ever really saw me. She left me that money because she believed in me when the rest of you were too busy celebrating Jackson's every move to notice what I was doing." "Now you are just being dramatic," Jackson said dismissively. "This victim act is getting old, Cleveland." "Victim act," I repeated, anger finally overtaking my usual desire to keep the peace. "My entire life has been spent in your shadow, watching everyone prioritize your needs and wants. And now, the one thing that was meant for me, the one gift that recognized my path as valuable, you want to take that too." "We are not taking anything," my mother interjected. "We are asking you to share with your brother at a critical time." "No," I stood up, suddenly seeing with perfect clarity how one-sided this relationship had always been. "You are not asking. You are demanding. You have already promised my money without my consent. You have budgeted it, planned with it, and now you are trying to guilt me into handing it over. Cleveland, do not make a scene," my father warned, his tone carrying the same disapproval I had heard throughout my childhood whenever I failed to conform to their expectations. "I am not making a scene," I replied, gathering my coat. "I am setting a boundary. My inheritance is mine. It was given to me for a specific purpose by someone who believed in me. I will not disrespect her memory or myself by giving it away for flower arrangements and a designer cake. If you walk out that door," Jackson threatened, "you are telling this family exactly where your priorities lie." I paused at the doorway, looking back at the four faces, watching me with varying degrees of disappointment and anger. My priority is honoring the one person who always honored me. And right now, that means saying no to all of you. With that, I walked out shaking with a mixture of adrenaline and grief. In the car, the full weight of what had just happened crashed down on me. I had stood up to my family for perhaps the first time in my life. The sense of liberation was tempered by an acute awareness of the relationships I might have just damaged beyond repair. The drive home from my parents' house that day was a blur. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white, and my mind raced through everything that had just happened. By the time I reached my apartment, I felt emotionally drained, yet strangely clear-headed. This clarity propelled me to take immediate action. The next morning, I contacted Jennifer Barnes, the lawyer who had handled my grandmother's estate. She agreed to see me that afternoon, and I took the rest of the day off work to meet with her. "Your grandmother's wishes were very explicit," Jennifer confirmed after reviewing the documents. "The money was left to you specifically for establishing your art studio. There are no conditions that would require you to share it with family members or use it for other purposes, and legally, no one can force me to use it differently," I asked, needing absolute certainty. "Absolutely not," she assured me. "This inheritance is legally yours to use as specified in the will. Any pressure to do otherwise has no legal standing." Armed with this confirmation, I returned home and spent the evening drafting a lengthy email to my family. I wanted to express my feelings clearly, without the interruptions and emotional manipulation that had characterized our in-person discussion. "Dear Mom, Dad Jackson, and Amanda," I began. "I am writing to clearly express my position regarding my inheritance from Grandma Eleanor. After careful consideration and consultation with her lawyer, I want to state unequivocally that I will not be contributing this money to Jackson and Amanda's wedding." I continued by explaining the special relationship I had shared with my grandmother, how she had been my champion when I felt overlooked by the rest of the family. I detailed how her belief in my artistic abilities had sustained me through years of feeling like an outsider in my own family. "This inheritance is not just money to me," I wrote. "It represents Grandma's faith in my path, her acknowledgement that my dreams are valid and worthy of support. Using it for any other purpose would dishonor her memory and her wishes." I addressed their arguments, directly pointing out that Jackson and Amanda's financial situation was far more secure than mine, and that their decision to plan an extravagant wedding beyond their means was not my responsibility to fix. I reminded them of the numerous times I had stepped aside for Jackson's benefit, from giving up my room when his friends visited to missing art opportunities because they conflicted with his events that the family prioritized. "I will attend the wedding and celebrate your union," I concluded, "but I will do so as a brother and son who has made his own choice about his inheritance, not as a financial contributor. I hope you can respect this decision and that we can move forward as a family." After sending the email, I made the difficult decision to create some temporary distance. I needed space to protect my emotional well-being and to stand firm in my resolve. I muted the family group chat, limited my social media time to avoid potential guilt trips, and focused on my work and art. The initial responses were predictably negative. Jackson sent a terse reply, stating that I had made my priorities clear and that perhaps it would be best if I reconsidered my attendance at the wedding altogether. My mother called repeatedly, leaving voicemails that alternated between guilt-inducing sadness and thinly veiled disappointment. My father sent a short text expressing his hope that I would come to my senses before irreparable damage is done to the family. I stood firm, responding only to acknowledge receipt of their messages, but refusing to engage in further debate about my decision. Instead, I channeled my emotional energy into researching studio spaces and equipment honoring my grandmother's gift by taking concrete steps toward realizing the dream she had supported. 2 weeks of minimal contact passed, during which I experienced a roller coaster of emotions: guilt, anger, sadness, and finally, a growing sense of peace with my decision. Then, unexpectedly, I received a call from my father. "Cleveland," he began, his voice lacking the authoritative tone I had come to expect. "I owe you an apology." Stunned into silence, I waited as he continued. Your mother and I have been discussing everything that happened, and we realize we put unfair pressure on you. The truth is, we were uncomfortable with Jackson and Amanda's extravagant plans from the beginning, but we did not feel we could say no to them. Instead, we transferred that pressure to you, which was wrong. Thank you for acknowledging that, I replied, still cautious, but moved by this unprecedented admission. Jackson and Amanda have had to scale back their wedding plans, he continued. They have found a different venue that is still lovely, but more reasonably priced. The process has been challenging for them, but perhaps necessary. As we continued talking, my father revealed something I had never known. He had always admired my artistic abilities, but had worried about my financial security. His own father had abandoned artistic pursuits for a stable job, and that generational pattern of thinking had colored his perspective on my choices. Your grandmother saw something in you that I was too afraid to encourage, he admitted. I am sorry for that, son. Later that week, my mother called as well. Her apology was more emotional and included a confession that she had never truly understood the bond between my grandmother and me. She saw the artist in you because she was one herself, my mother said softly. I never inherited that gift or that understanding. I think I was jealous of your connection with her, and that made me dismiss what you shared. Even Jackson eventually reached out, though. His message stopped short of a full apology. We have adjusted our wedding plans, he wrote. The invitation still stands if you want to come. No strings attached. I decided to attend the wedding, which turned out to be beautiful despite the scaled-back budget. There was residual tension, particularly with Amanda, but also moments of genuine warmth and reconciliation. I presented them with a wedding gift I had created myself, a hand-painted landscape of the location where they had gotten engaged. It was acknowledged with what seemed like sincere appreciation. In the months that followed, I secured a small commercial space, not far from my apartment, and began the process of transforming it into the art studio my grandmother had envisioned. I kept my day job for stability, but devoted evenings and weekends to building my dream. The first piece I completed in the new space was a portrait of my grandmother, capturing the twinkle in her eye that appeared whenever she watched me create. Looking back now, a year after that painful confrontation, I can see how that moment of standing my ground changed everything. The journey of healing family relationships has been slow and sometimes difficult, but also rewarding. My parents have visited the studio several times, and my father recently asked if he could display one of my pieces in his office at school. Jackson and I maintain a cordial relationship, though we will likely never be close in the way some brothers are. That is okay. We are different people with different paths. The most profound change, however, has been within myself. By honoring my grandmother's belief in me, I learned to truly believe in myself. I discovered that setting boundaries, even with family, is not selfish but necessary for healthy relationships. Love does not require sacrifice of your core values or dreams. My grandmother once told me, Cleveland, the greatest gift you can give someone is to become fully yourself. In protecting her legacy and pursuing my passion, I have come to understand the wisdom in those words. By refusing to diminish myself to please others, I ultimately created space for more authentic connections with my family. I often wonder what Grandma Eleanor would think if she could see me now teaching weekend art classes in the studio that bears her name in small letters above the door. I like to think she would smile that knowing smile of hers and say, I always knew you would find your way. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure to protect something important to you? What boundaries have you set that changed your relationships for the better? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about family dynamics and personal growth. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is honor your own path.